Hey, good morning. Listen, one of the conversations we had yesterday was around the use of ball machines, and I wanted to bring that conversation to the group here today and share it with you. And I think the ball machine is an amazing tool. And the conversation yesterday it wasn't that it wasn't an amazing tool. It was simply the fact that you know what they didn't want kids using the machine and ruining their strokes and just ingraining something that was wrong, which makes sense to me as well. But here's why I love the machine. And so there's 7 stages to the motor engram creation of anything we do for stroke production. So the first couple of phases, it's more if they're younger, it's hand self-fed, then maybe hand-fed, and then I want to move on to the machine. And why I want that is because I want to be able to, obviously in self-fed and hand-fed, I'm right there with the athlete. We're working on something that's very specific. It's very localized. We're working on maybe one specific thing as we're going through this process. But as we get to the machine work, now I want, we've put together a whole bunch of stuff on it. If we're looking at the forehand, we've gone from the loading phase, prep phase, all the way through to finish. And so now I want to start putting the ball into play first with no spin into a very specific area, let them burn it. Skill acquisition is simply, if you read Dr. Daniel Coyle's book, it's myelination of the brain. And so we want to be able to control that early stage learning. So they're building that super highway. We're building the technique that we want them to have at that point in time. And it's the simplest when they're younger, obviously. But as you get older, we can still go through the same stuff as long as myelination is still happening in the brain. I haven't heard the contrary that it doesn't happen. I just think it slows down. Production may slow down. So it may take us longer. But understand you can accomplish it by doing the same technique. So have the child, you're now behind the child using the machine, you're working with them. And just like the Chinese dive team, filming is tremendously important. So there's not a dive, there's not an in the gym is being videotaped in the pool on the dive boards. It's being videotaped. Every rep, every rep is coached. There's feedback, immediate feedback for the athlete to take and start implementing. Plus, there's visual. So there's all kinds of cues for these athletes to get better. No wonder they're one of the best dive teams in the world for the last, probably 2 decades. And the same thing with the Americans. I mean, when you look at their dive program, same thing. And we get away from it in tennis, and yet you go down to, I'm not sure this is the case because I had never worked there, but you go to a IMG or a Bollettieri, and the cameras are on the fences. Now, how often are the students actually looking at their video? I don't know, but it's not instant, right? So you want this to be instant feedback, especially during motor engram production or creation, right? When you're building the foundation, you're behind them, you show them, they can walk back over to you, you have your model, and you can do side-by-side comparisons. This puts the athlete right in their own learning zone, so it's better if they start learning, so they can see themselves, you have a young boy learning I shouldn't say serve because we do ball forehand, right? And you have Federer beside them as the model. They can start saying, oh yeah, my hand went behind my back, his goes down chest side, doesn't go behind his back. I'll go work on that. Perfect. And there's your soft focus for that next ball. Come back, compare again. And within a day or so, you've got them going pretty solid if you're doing this kind of methodology. And then it's just continuing to build that motor engram creation. I hope you agree with me on this, but this is how it's perfect. And the machine is awesome because now, once they get it from no spin going to a certain spot, then we can obviously create different heights with the ball, lower, higher. Then we get to go left, right, forward, backwards, all the axis. It's very then simple to use with the machine. Then you can move to the live ball, then to obviously match play and so on and so forth. So you want to go through the entire progression, and even with your adult, even with your adults, don't worry about them going using a ball machine. Be very specific with what you give them on the machine, and then let them go practice with one and come back to you. I think as a coach, you can actually drive more revenue having a machine in the club, right? Because they can go practice on their own, they can come back and then you can look at it, you can do videotaping. It's simply an amazing opportunity, I think, as a coach, right? So don't be scared to use them. Get one in the club, work on a program for you, with your management team, excuse me, and leverage these machines because, and get your adults on it. Get your adults working on it, right? I mean, there's so many times where they simply can't fix something, right? It's got to be frustrating paying us thousands of dollars over the course of a year, and nothing's getting fixed, right? Or it'll be fixed for a second, but then they go out and because we're not building the motor engram, you're not myelinating the brain. And some of them they have to understand. I would actually have them read the talent code as part of the program and say, okay, read the code because this is how myelination creates. And somewhere in there he says, I don't know if I can't remember the exact statistic, or we know it slows down at a certain age, the myelination creation, but we're not sure if it actually stops being created. So don't quote me on that. Look it up in the book, but it definitely slows down. So as you get older, right? So I'm 52. It's going to be slower than what it would be for a 7-year-old or 5-year-old whose myelination is just like let's go, man. Let's fire. Let's build some super highways. Mine will be like, hey, let's build some super highways, but it'll be much slower, right? But you can put me on a machine. You can teach me how to do whatever you want me to do on the machine. You can be behind me, and it's the same process, right? It just will be slower, and they have to understand that. So if they're serious about getting better, it's actually going to drive more revenue for you because it's going to take longer. But you keep them on the same thing. Don't just, you know what? Too many people just go, oh, let's go hit the ball. Oh yeah, it's more fun. Let's go hit the ball. But you're not getting better. And that's maybe what they want. So, sometimes you got to give them what they want. I'm not of that type. I'm going to make sure you get what you need. You're going to swallow the pill, and then you're going to, enjoy the reward afterwards once you have it down pat, and you can go from a 2-5 player to a 3-5 player to a 4-0 to a 5-0 player over a period of time. So, anyways, that's my thoughts around Ball Machine. I think it's an amazing tool, especially with the younger ones. Well, with everybody, it could be a revenue generation tool. Simply love them, and hope to see a lot more playmates out in the future. Bye now.